Are you the kind of person who is very invested in personal development and always looking to learn and grow and expand yourself? But somehow the people around you seem to be going in the opposite direction. The gap between your self awareness and those of others around you has grown so much that you can't help but judge them or nudge them toward doing more inner work. If that's you, then this video is for you. And in this one, I will break down exactly how to stay invested in your own personal growth path without getting affected by friends or family who refuse to grow. If you're new here, hi, my name is Shagun, and my hope is to help you lead your most fulfilled, your most creative life possible. Let me start with a personal story. A version of this story has happened so many times in my life over the last couple of years. My husband and I would be in the car, he would be driving, and somebody would cut us off or drive inappropriately, and he would make an angry remark against that person. And in that moment, something would feel so unsettled in me. And I would immediately offer to my husband another plausible explanation for why that person did what they did. And it didn't matter what the actual act was, I would always jump in and offer my husband a counter perspective. Maybe they were running late for an appointment. Maybe they didn't see that other person in front of them. Maybe they have a crying kid in the car. And then my husband would turn toward me and he would have this look of dejection on his face, and out would come the words, "You never take my side." This would hurt me so much. My whole persona is being able to see other people's perspective. I'm training to be a clinical psychologist. I practice as a coach. I have spent years studying ancient Vedic texts. Essentially, my whole life has been one long personal development journey. And here comes a person so dear to me and one I so respect telling me that I am not taking his side, that I don't have empathy for him. Zooming out from this a little bit, Carl Jung, a Swiss psychotherapist, would say that this was a battle of our complexes. Something would come alive and get activated in me when my husband would say something about someone driving a car or someone even dressed funny on the street and something would come alive in him as a result of my remark of sharing the other person's point of view. I would think to myself, why would he think that I'm not taking his side? Like, this is not a matter of taking sides. We're not in some legal argument here. I'm just presenting somebody else's perspective while honoring my husband's. But that's not how he saw it. We would keep having different iterations of the same argument, and I never could point out exactly what was going on. It's always hardest to see our own need for inner work by ourselves. Then there came a few moments where I was just having a bad day as a mother. Like maybe the children were out of control, or I was just in some sort of a mood. And I picked up the phone to see if I could call a friend. And as I was scrolling through my recent texts and calls, I realized that there weren't as many people that I felt comfortable calling anymore compared to what I used to. And I thought to myself, why is that? And the more I introspected, the more I realized that I had gotten so entrenched in my new and improved persona as a coach, as a psychotherapist, that I found it a little low of me, candidly, to then call someone and vent about something rather stupid and meaningless in the grand scheme of things. Like, what would that say about me? As I started to examine this new persona in more depth, I realized that I was still holding on to aspects of my old identity. Toni Wolff was one of Jung's close collaborators, and she came up with the idea of 4 feminine psychology types. These were the mother, the hetera or the companion, the Amazon, which is like a driven, career-oriented professional woman, and the medial woman, one who could bridge the conscious and the unconscious worlds. So I knew many years ago when I started doing this work that I identified most with the Amazon woman, which was the woman who was goal-oriented, who was driven toward career and professional success. She's characterized by achievement, by focus, by independence, and I have been all those things. And over these years, I've made a conscious effort to balance out my personality by integrating the mother, the lover, or the spiritual woman archetypes. And despite some integration, some of it was forced by just having children children, I have realized that I haven't quite gotten there, that I still continue to be that Amazon woman, except now my persona is attached to a new profession, the one that pertains to personal development and mental health. So when I would see my husband, in my opinion, pass a judgment about somebody he didn't know, I took it upon me to show him that there's always a bigger picture, that people are who they are for a reason, that they do things because they're motivated by drives and forces that we cannot ordinarily see. And I would attempt to present this point of view to him in that immediate moment when he was trying to vent. Without realizing, I had turned my husband into some sort of a growth project that was now my responsibility to shepherd and move along, because that is the profession that I was going to be in now. In psychology, as in a lot of healthcare, we have this thing called informed consent. And it means that the person that we are about to serve, that we are about to work with, is fully explained what the nature of the engagement would entail, what the process would look like, what are some benefits, some risks, what progression you can expect, and then get their consent into starting that process, starting that healing journey. And this consent is not limited to one particular point in time only when you first start working with someone. It is collected time after time as you engage with the person. A doctor in a clinical room might ask you for your permission before touching you or examining you. I, for one, in my coaching sessions with clients, will always ask clients, are you open to doing this meditation? Are you open to doing this visualization or this somatic work? Because I know that it's important that they understand what they're getting into and they are in for their journey. That's how change happens. But my husband or my friends, they did not sign any such consent form. And quite unfairly to them, I had become the person in their life who was trying to do all these things to them in an attempt to make them grow without them realizing. No wonder my husband did not feel comfortable venting around me. And the same was true for my friends too. Some of them would call me and say, you'd be so proud of me. I did X, Y, Z. And I'd think to myself, like, why would they feel the need to say that? Like, of course, I'm proud of them and I love them. They're my friends. But I think it's because they perceive that now that I was on this next level of my personal development journey, where I'm not just working on myself, but I'm helping other people, that they are more prone to being judged by me. Or at least that's the vibe I gave them. And the downside wasn't limited to just these people. I too felt uncomfortable in being able to vent to my husband or to my friends, because why would I allow myself this very human moment? Because it would run contrary to my persona. Ultimately, me and the people close and dear to me, we're all having to suppress our very humanity just because this idealized narrative of personal growth had taken root in our lives. And I will take full responsibility for bringing this problem into our life. My relationship with my husband was not like this when I met him. We were able to engage in more banter and be able to make fun of things around us and be silly without turning everything into a personal growth opportunity. So I did what I always do and what I ask my clients to do, which is to do shadow work. I went back to the source of the trigger. I imagined those car ride conversations and I journaled and allowed my unconscious to express itself to see what was going on beneath the surface. And as I mentioned, I realized that in an odd way, I had come to be tied to this new persona. I had come so far away from the woman who worked in tech and had a corporate life. But even then, this new identity still had a hold on me. Who was I if I couldn't see other people's perspectives or express empathy? Who was I if the man that I had chosen to be my life partner was not matching me at that level? It was my fear of abandoning this new identity that had come to define me that was causing all these behaviors. Years of clinical psychology training and studying Jungian psychology and becoming a coach had taken its hold on me. Don't get me wrong, it has been hands down the most transformative thing that has happened in my life. I feel that it has given me this theory of everything through which I can examine anything that my life throws at me or anything that my clients' lives throw at them and be able to make sense of it, being able to intentionally move through it, to grow and to experience our true spiritual nature. But it was starting to bleed into aspects of my life that had no business being the home for this work. The minute I came to this realization, it became very easy for me to just be present and attentive to my husband's feelings without necessarily feeling this compulsion to offer a different point of view, one that was more mature or more growth oriented. In shadow work, it happens in a spiral. You arrive at the same thing multiple times. So I had a few months where this was working great, and then again I would fall into the same pattern because then there's a new layer to uncover. And as I did shadow work the second time around on the same topic, I realized that our complexes still existed within us. In fact, they never go away. They just start to have less and less charge over time. When I would offer a point of view from someone else's perspective, my husband would immediately forget that there was ever a time when I was with him, present with him, and did take his side. And the minute my husband would show the slightest annoyance at my point of view, I would forget all the times where he has been empathetic, where he has shown his tender heart, and think of it as someone who lacked empathy for the other person. What has changed though now is that because the complexes have less psychic charge, it becomes easier to catch them. It becomes easier to stay quiet when you feel the complex coming on, and then if it still spills through you, then it's easier to apologize because you didn't really mean it. Shadow work on this topic continues to be an ongoing process in my life. In fact, it is not enough to simply know the shadow. The shadow must be integrated. I realized that I had such a deep need for sharing this new, wonderful, life-changing knowledge that I had acquired. The missing piece in my personal growth journey that started way back when I was in middle school. And I felt the need to share that. And not just share that in a preachy sort of way, but I wanted to show the world the power of this work. So I took all that energy that was lying in my subconscious that would come out unexpectedly in moments like this and cause this conflict between me and my husband. And I channeled that toward my podcast, Partners in Sublime, where I do get informed consent from clients who are interested in a depth psychology and spiritual perspective on what's going on in their life. They are ready and eager for that work, and they are willing to tolerate the discomfort, the temporary discomfort that comes while this work is in progress. These people not just engage in the work, but they give me permission to share this in the world, to use their coaching sessions to explain concepts that I think are truly transformative and absolutely life-changing. Taking this impulse I had, this desire for psychoeducation, this desire of making sense of everything through the lens of Jungian psychology and Vedic philosophy, and turning it into a creative project, I feel that I've been able to give home to this unconscious energy, and it no longer spills over to my personal relationships with my husband or with my friends. I can be a silly, goofy, very human person with them while also retaining my ability to do this deep work in a different context. If, like me, you have had or you are feeling the pull to bring others along in your personal development journey, and you find yourself constantly nudging them, pushing them, maybe even forcing them to change and grow, maybe it's time to do your own shadow work and realize what exactly that is showing you about your own unconscious. And maybe there's an unconscious desire in you to bond with, to connect with other people who are on a similar like-minded journey as you. And you can sublimate that desire and channel it toward finding a space for you for personal growth that is not your friends and family. This can be a book club. This can be a group text. This can be a peer who becomes your accountability and discussion partner. I have found such spaces for me, and I encourage you to find yours too. If you like, you can even go on my website and sign up for the mailing list so that if I have any community events in the future, you'd get to know about them. But either way, do not ignore the signs from your unconscious that are telling you that you might be missing something in your personal growth journey that is spilling over into your life without others' permission. I hope we all keep doing our shadow work. That's all I have for you today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.